I never committed, right? I think it was more of an inquiry about a potential addition to the affordable housing portion of my business, right? So it was just, I inquired with him, he made the connection to the people who had the information. I'm not sure how many, because I'm not sure if the right to know was just with Vision and you only got the emails with him, but I'm certain that there were additional emails with Frank without Mike, right? After the introduction, maybe some early preliminary questions, then Mike and I, started a new thread to really get to the information I would need to make, a decision. To be quite honest with you, I didn't like how it was being handled.
From the right to know request, that's the only time we can tell, but it was going on months and months before, probably the beginning of 2021. I would believe that that's when the discussions first started happening. And then it was finally revealed at the Cambria County Planning Commission when Ethan Imhoff gave his statement. So once that became public, a few people noticed it and it spread. So I was getting calls at my office about bringing refugees to town. I said, look, nobody's bringing refugees to town. That's not happening here. That's somewhere else. It's not happening here. So I got like 5 or 6 calls of people with the same concern. Then I get a call from WJAC. They want to know what's going on. So finally I said, listen, I got calls from a bunch of angry people. I don't know anything about this. And they're asking me about Vision. And I said, I'm not part of that. I have no idea.
A lot of these people all knew this was going on. When it started coming out and people were against it, they just said, oh yeah, well, me too. Mm-hmm. I think just to quell and go along with the flow of people.
Well, when this originally came out, Jackie Colback, the Cambria County chairwoman for the Republican Party, went on the news, did a press statement, stood against it, and then all of a sudden we hear stories that every Friday she's having lunch with Bill Polachek, and the Republican Party just kind of stopped discussing it.
I think there was originally some correspondence there in the email.
In the emails, yes. I also received those from a right to know request from the city, and that's why it was pivotal to target the government officials who are on the Vision board to get their emails, because the evidence is there.
Jackie, this is becoming a habit between the two of us, wouldn't you say?
Yes, Bill, it's fancy, I must say. So, what's the occasion?
Well, my dear, there seems to be a disturbance amongst the steel rats on the social platforms these days over the whole Afghan ordeal.
Oh, Bill, you're not thinking of...
Yes, Jackie. Bidenomics has done nothing but inflate our operating costs, and local help has fallen on deaf ears.
Well, Bill, like I told Fox News, the local schools are struggling with the people they have now. Our hospitals are overwhelmed. Our social services that these people are requiring, our county just can't handle more.
Let's not make this political. There is a lot of lies and bad assumptions out there, and we will need to address it sooner rather than later. We are only in the discovery phase of a plan for immigrants, and my recommendation is to keep the message that simple. We need to get together and create a committee with other communities members so that we are more transparent.
Well, like I said in the past, there's nothing glamorous about what happens at the local level. It's just a lot of hard work, door knocking, phone banking, and creating events to bring people together to meet candidates.
Not quite what I was getting at, but I like your approach. Here's what I was thinking, and this will certainly help your re-election campaign if you help get in front of the camera and media about this.
Won't this all seem a little, un-American in our red county?
We have a media plan in place to slowly acclimate the new refugees. If anyone catches on, we simply refer to the plan as if everything was intentional and makes total sense.
I can run a blitz of media statements, certainly with my own spin.
Good girl. And I'll make sure Mike Tedesco and Amy Bradley are in lockstep to the music. Both will be front and center, deflecting any biases against the rollout of the human capital plan. There's one thing I've learned in business over the years, Jackie. We all can't be Rocky Balboa.
Oh, Bill, that sounds so...
Cheesy?
Yes.
I know how much you like cheese, Jackie.
Okay, so the question is, what's in it for me?
The Tribune Democrat wrote an editorial from Chip Minnemeyer, the editor, saying, "Just calm down." It came out on a Saturday morning. He didn't use my name, though he talked about the Facebook post, and I knew it was about me. Chip was doing damage control because Robert Forsey, who is the current head of Vision, at that time was the publisher of the Tribune, and every week there are these articles on how great Vision is and how wrong we are.
We had a forum in the library.
Joe and I in Revitalized Johnstown hosted a secrecy forum to basically expose the Afghan refugees. You could find that on Facebook. The Tribune was doing damage control openly. Just calm down.
No big deal.
There was an editorial trashing Frank Burns because he was agreeing with us and being very vocal on Facebook and in the media. And as we kept right to know requesting and kept finding these records, I stumbled on a one reference document. It was a blank copy called a non-disclosure agreement. So I filed right to know request with all 8 government officials who were on the Vision board. And of course, magically, everybody fought me. There was appeals. Nobody would admit to it, but the reality is Vision made all of their board members who are government officials or elected officials sign a non-disclosure agreement. So everything they were discussing in the secret meetings didn't have to be talked about. I had an appeal with Linda Thompson over records for Jari. I believe Jari was getting about $6 million from grants. I believe when I saw that during the appeal. My question was, how are they spending taxpayer money? And of course, I lost the appeal. They are a nonprofit, but they're still getting sourced by government money. But Linda is still on the board of Vision, and she does have to answer as to what is she doing. She was the one that incorporated Vision years ago. All her name is on the paperwork. And my question if she's using Jari as a front to filter Vision money.
It was initially off-putting that it seemed nefarious. Like, why should this seem nefarious? Then that piqued my interest on, okay, why is this even a discussion? Then understanding the posture of the community, right? And it was almost immediate, like, who is this Laquan Marshall? Who is Johnstown Capital? Attack, 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 attack. I just didn't like the posture, and it was very off-putting to me. So, you know, it's not like I'm desperate to search new opportunities. So I'm like, you know what, this juice may not be worth the squeeze.
When I was filing right to know requests, all of the emails that I received from these requests showed that Amy was the taskmaster behind covering Vision's trail. They actually put her in the meeting minutes showing that she would do a PR campaign of, I believe it was 4 or 5 different items for positive PR to spin it. And this was all because I put these records on Facebook, and once I exposed it, and for those of you who know me, I just keep posting until I get a response. And there was enough of a public outcry, Vision had to respond to me, and Vision wasn't happy.
They were going after the claims that we made. They were just finding ways to, you know, spin it so it was a good light for them. They were bullet pointing their talking points to engineer that this was a good thing and how people should want the Afghan refugees.
And Amy, to this day, the only response she put on Facebook about it was basically saying it was just a handful of families. She's never addressed the fact that she was their task person, that she was in the secret meetings, whether or not she signed the non-disclosure agreement. Amy has never taken responsibility for her actions. When I put these things online, when I go to these meetings and see her directly and say, Amy, you were involved with the voter referendum. You got the city manager hired who was your friend in Vision. When you do this, this, or that, she runs and hides, and then it's all, I'm super positive. I wear rose-colored glasses. That's what she put on Facebook. That was her response. I actually found pictures on her Twitter, which I reposted to Facebook, showing her at these meetings. If you find the picture, there's a board that actually talks about the human capital plan where they're doing bullet points from 2021. That's how far back this goes. This was something they cooked up during COVID to basically create money for them.
Did this conversation come up through Mike? Like how many families might be potentially coming through, or was that through?
No, the conversation with Mike and I never got to that point. It was always kind of diverted to Frank, who would have that information.
Tedesco wound up being the fall guy for them because he was out there saying what they told him to say. And then when the truth came out, when the emails finally came out, it was Tedesco that lied, not Vision. Tedesco's the one who went out in front of the public and told you this. but he was only doing what Vision told him. Tedesco is a yes man. Everything I know about him, he's a yes man. So he would do whatever Bill Polachek told him to do.
You have to remember that initially when Vision hired Mike Tedesco, and he, West Coast Mikey, I printed his book City Boy online, I put segments. He was a con artist. I put him in posters. This is a guy who openly admitted in a novel he wrote that he used to sleep on his last job. He was just an executive director of a nonprofit making $120,000 a year, who because of his political connection with all the Vision board members, was able to contact different segments of our government and make things happen behind everybody's back. Nobody knew he was doing this. So when I unearthed the initial right to know record and started asking questions, everybody denied it. Our government officials scattered. Nobody wanted to acknowledge what he was doing. And there's multiple interviews where you see him on the news denying it. And each time he would deny it, especially WJAC, they did a very good job of this. They would show my right to know records, have him denying it, and then he would have to backpedal.
I asked Tedesco about the lack of initial messaging and if he wished he brought the public into the discussion sooner.
From my experience with Johnstown, it is one of the most welcoming communities that I've ever had the pleasure to live in. The limited response from a small number of individuals on social media does not reflect how Johnstown celebrates diversity, nor does it reflect the heritage of Johnstown as a city of immigrants that came here looking for work.
It was the biggest embarrassment our area has ever seen, and that's why I was calling for Vision to be disbanded. These nonprofit leaders, many with government ties, should not be controlling the government subvertly.
That was his job at Vision, and that's what he did. And he paid the price for it. In Vision's game of chess, Tedesco was one pawn that they sacrificed.
There's a vendetta for whatever reason there is, right? You know, we were just a scapegoat, right? It just was easy. There's just educated guesses, right? This Afghan thing was something that was, in my opinion, clearly communicated that the community did not want, right? The community did not want. However, when you look at it from an economical and maybe even a political standpoint, it could be healthy for the community because you see the population decline. This could help combat that, right? You have labor at a certain level that could assist the economy. You have positives, right? And then, you know, this is a Democrat initiative. You know, you have this community. It's making sense on paper, which is probably why Vision got behind it. I don't know. I can't speak to conversations I've never had. However, you got the community commenting, making posts, really disgusting stuff about them not coming and it being nonsensical. We don't want murderers and rapists here. They're gonna blow up downtown. I've seen tons of them, which they should be ashamed of. And not knowing that there are very specific types of refugees that they're gonna be bringing over. If they read anything, they're bringing people with master's degrees over. They're bringing affluent people in that community that we've made a commitment to help as a nation.
When it comes to the hospital, now you got people that are gonna have to be on state insurance, and the reimbursement for state insurance isn't ideal for the hospital. So you're bringing more poverty here that makes the burden on the hospital worse. Now, the hospital's gonna need interpreters. The hospital's gonna need extra staff to deal with this population. Now the police, there's gonna be problems. There's been problems throughout history when a group of migrants come into an area and try to settle. There's been legal problems for centuries when that happens. The police are gonna have to deal with those problems and an undermanned police staff. This all comes with it, but Vision didn't address any of that because I really believe they were more concerned, it's my opinion, they were more concerned with bringing cheap labor to town so that they could profit off the backs of the refugees.
Think about considering people human capital.
Oh,
Isn't that derogatory anyways?
Hey, my name's Casey. I am in the heartland of Pennsylvania, in Pennsylvania, Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And I looked it up, and back in January, there was an article about our Vision 2025 and about how we have a super lack of jobs in the area. But just the idea of having Afghan refugees coming here just massively triggered people including the Democrats who were supposed to represent us.
Also, if you complain, they can just call you racist or whatever else, how they always, oh, you just don't like immigrants, or there's a lot of issues that come up with it.
Just racist slurs that are constantly said, that watching the Steeler games and stuff like that. And so you just grow up with that stuff. And it's just like, not even immigrants, but refugees.
I know it.
Illegally,
I know it.
Fine.
Crazy.
These people don't speak English, so you're going to have to provide some type of English as a second language to get these people to be able to communicate on the job. That could be $50,000, $60,000 just to teach English. So the school district doesn't have room. Let's say they said 100 families, right? That's in their plan. Vision claims they were going to bring 100 families. Now let's be conservative here. Let's just say there's mother and father and 2 kids per family on average. So you have 2 kids times 100 families, that's 200 kids joining the Johnstown School District. 200 kids that speak a language where we don't have interpreters to teach them. This is going to be a significant burden on the taxpayers of Johnstown School District. But Vision didn't care about that because it didn't affect them. None of them even live in the city of Johnstown.
Amy Arcurio?
Yes.
Oh, gotta take a breath for this one. What do I say about Amy? I have been Amy Arcurio's biggest critic. I will say this for Amy. Despite the fact that I am her critic, Amy did the right thing. So when the situation with Vision got too severe with the Afghan refugees, Amy did the most startling thing she could. She went on the TV news and she said, this is wrong. We have a transient population. We're maxed out on social services. The school cannot handle the influx of any more people. We're maxed out. And Amy deserves a little bit of praise for that. And coming from her critic, she's probably going to be shocked if she watches this, because Amy did the right thing. Despite that I busted the Arcurios years ago for secret meetings at the Union Social, despite the 9-person flip over on the school board, she was on that board, I believe, to be Vision's liaison to the school district. I think she was there to serve a function. She's not blameless in this. But when this reached a head and this became public, she did what she had to do. I have to give Amy credit. She stood up. She was the only member of the board that went public and said stop. And that should be the biggest shock of all in this web series. There was somebody in local government who opposed them openly.
That the needs of our students that we currently have are significant, and they're great needs. And so, it's really important for the school district to have a seat at the table so that the rest of the board who might see this venture as positive for their organization is not positive for the greater Johnstown School District.
The general public doesn't know who we are, may have seen me around from time to time, but doesn't know who we are. Then you got this guy, for whatever reason, is against the refugee, the Afghans. But, when the Ukraine refugees come around, you don't hear that, you hear support. And I'm curious on the difference.
And all of a sudden, the narrative switched from Afghan refugees that they were trying to bring here to opportunistically Ukrainian refugees. And we're open to everyone. And so to make that happen, an anonymous donor shows up with $100,000 to try to spin this even further, to create some positivity and positive news surrounding the situation of bringing refugees, because they knew the public would be more understanding of a war-torn country like the Ukraine accepting refugees than a situation from Afghani refugees coming here. Now, the truth is, the problems are all still the same. They may fit in better because we have more of their culture here for the Ukraine refugees. We can't take any more kids in the school. Our hospital is busting at the seams. It was a move by Vision to be opportunistic. I don't know who gave the donation, but the public can make their own opinion on who has the money to make that type of donation in our community.
The restaurant across the street, has a hard time staying open. It's Coney Island Hot Dogs, has a hard time staying open because there are not employees to fill their open positions. And then it goes to the trades, like the JWF. And then it goes to the highly skilled, like Conemaugh Medical Center. And then it goes to engineers at various positions. It is the full spectrum of job openings.
I've posted jobs from $15 to $35 an hour, right? Based on skill.
Okay, just in Johnstown.
In Johnstown, $15 to $35 an hour. If you know how to sweep the floor and clean up dirt, $15 an hour, right? I've hired people here and there. People last 2 days, 3 days. They don't show up, right? They come in late. They got to leave early. They don't treat it like a job. Maybe there's a gap in the jobs available and maybe education requirement, or so, like there's a lot of nurses, a lot of x-ray technician, a lot of certificate-based positions available, right? But man, I think that the community's so subsidized, people are not incentivized to get a job. I've had tenants who, non-Section 8, nothing. They go and get, I think it's the Bridge program, through the landlord association. They pay you full year your rent. Then you go to community action and they'll pay all of your bills, including your utilities. There were so many programs here that really discourages people from getting a job. And I'm on the other side. I'm not, this is not theoretical. Which is why I made the comment earlier about hiring locally, because I tried, but you need reliability in the business that we're in.
The non-disclosure agreements were to basically cover Vision's ass for everything they wanted to do covertly.
Having a non-disclosure for politicians that goes against everything our political system is made up on. The politicians, all the Sunshine Acts and everything, they're supposed to do everything in the public. The only thing they're allowed to talk about in secrecy is like workers' comp kind of things or legal matters that are ongoing, and that's stuff they can sit in the back room and talk about because they're special circumstances. Everything else is supposed to be done out.
But those are at government meetings, not in a private nonprofit.
But there's carve-outs where there are secret things, but those are like lawsuits or someone workers' comp filing or something. That's one thing. But then they're supposed to come out and talk about that, vote on it. Having a non-disclosure paper where you can't talk about plans you're making for the general community goes against everything our system is designed around. So they're violating their oaths.
And one of the biggest complaints I had with Vision, and I have to this day, is transparency. I was constantly going on Facebook, posting all the meeting minutes, and there were so many of them showing all these plans for years to bring the Afghan refugees, and there was no public disclosure. Nobody knew what was going on. And then I'm posting these records and no one's commenting on the posts. No one's liking the posts, but they're getting thousands of views. People are still afraid to comment. I still put these records up and get very few response. Thousands of views because
look at them.
People are scared because Vision is a bully.
Well, all the people in power are part of it, and if you do something that they don't like, they'll make your life more difficult. In an area where jobs are few and far between, that's easy for them to do because they control the employees. If they control the employers, you can control the employees. That's the same as steel mill mentality. You're out, find another town to live in.
And if you notice how they did this with the Afghan refugees, the Quality Housing Task Force, where they tried to take over Prospect, Coopersdale, and Oakhurst. The records I unearthed from right to know requests, and I was the advocate for Prospect. When the ceilings collapsed, we didn't know they had this whole plot to take over the project with a $50 million grant. And those were Vision board members. That was Sue Mann, and that was that was Mark Pascarella hiring his Greater Johnstown Regional Partnership consultant, Matt Ward. This was all done in the cloak of darkness through Vision board members, and they have basically taken over every section of our government.
Chad McLaren was hired to help assist the recruitment of refugees to Cambria County. The connection there with his hire is Robert Forsey at the Tribune Democrat was a board member of Vision 2025. Chad McLaren's mother, Arlene Johns, works at the newspaper. So that connection between the newspaper and Vision, that's why he was hired at Vision 2025. And because of that hire and the connections Vision has with the newspaper, they were able to bury stories or downplay what was really happening and downplay the seriousness of what Vision tried to do to our community.
When I exposed the Afghan refugee scandal, I put Frank Burns, Jim Rigby, and Wayne Langerhulk right in the crossfires. Senator Langerhulk actually showed up to the Vision meeting and he blasted Mike Tedesco. Very unhappy with me. He was so mad at me for putting him in satire posters, he couldn't even look at me. And I did apologize to Wayne. My comment was, though, why can't you do this without being pushed for it? Wayne's not a bad guy. The question, though, is why wasn't he doing this on his own? Jim Rigby questioned Vision's plan as well. He had meetings, he was very behind the scenes with it. I did talk to Jim, I have to credit him for that. However, we have to really give the 4-star A+ to Frank Burns. Frank Burns went on a limb. He just didn't challenge what Vision was doing behind the scenes. He put out press release after press release, public comment, public statement, Facebook posts. Frank is the only link they have left to destroy to have total domination of this area. Everybody else fell in line. Remember, the current head of the city of Johnstown is Vision's former vice chairman, Ethan Imhoff, who just resigned.
I mean, they came up with this human capital plan. You know, even the name makes it sound like these people are nothing more than machinery to be used by the wealthy for a means to an end and for their own profit. It's very disheartening that this is actually what they tried to do. But since that became public, they've been denying that that's actually what they were doing. Even today, they'll tell you we were only bringing a handful. We were only bringing a few refugees. It could be anywhere from 300 to 1,000. We don't know.
There's going to be 5 or 6 families. I saw, up to 1,000 people? That might have been coming through.
From where? Where'd you see that?
From my seat, specifically the Vision Together 2025 has been exploring a plan that would potentially bring 5 to 10 legally vetted immigrant families with skills appropriate to fill some of the many jobs available in our area.
But was it something that was considered before this? We don't have the documentation to prove or disprove, but it certainly looks very coincidental that this stuff happened within the same, year or two where they're trying to make this happen.
I don't know. Well, it didn't come to me, right? Well, maybe it did. I don't know.
I just want to know, did they give you a number?
Did Mike give me a number?
Anyone?
I don't.
Did anybody say, hey,
I can't.
We have this many people we're thinking about bringing through? I wish I knew.
Maybe I would have to double check. Maybe it's a possibility that during the it seems like a question I would ask.
I don't know what the deal was with Prospect, but I do know when they went to talk, they did talk the Johnstown Housing Authority about getting Section 8 vouchers for these hundreds of refugees coming in. Yeah, there's an email on that. It may have even been reported in the paper. I think they went and talked to Mike Alberts about it. I mean, it just shows you that they were trying to get funding for all these new public housing units. At the same time, they were trying to shut down Prospect.
Well, you know how they say politicians are lying all the time? Mm-hmm. This is how they lie all the time. They're behind the scenes, they do one thing, and then when it turns out that people aren't liking it, they come out and say, well, we don't like that either. But meanwhile, they have a whole trail of saying they were all for it and planning it. Even today, Jackie Colback's representative she's running, Amy Bradley, she was a point man for this operation, at least on their PR, and she's running her for state rep. She backs up, and I've heard her to this day say, well, it's just a handful, it was no big deal. No.
Philadelphia billionaire wanting to control Cambria County politics.
There's not a person on top, per se, but there's a conglomerate of people in power, and all their interests up top tend to intermingle, so they pull them in and say, this is how we could help you with this is how we could help you with that.
I guarantee most people do not think what they're doing is what the public wants.
It's play money. They don't care. It's not their money. They don't use their money. They use our money instead of fixing things that we need fixed. The buck stops at our elected officials, but they have a firewall where a lot of the voters just don't see that.
And you're not going to stop us.